Dating Venezuelans abroad. That's a double-edged sword. Today, we explain why.
Welcome to Venezuela Insider, the only place in Venezuela for expats, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, investors, travelers, and related internationals. For more information, venezuelainsider.com.
So today we are talking about dating Venezuelan, mostly female of course, abroad, and since there is a lot of interest by internationals, that since of course with this big diaspora of Venezuelans abroad, you see a lot of Venezuelan females that are easy on the eye in places like, of course, in Colombia, in Bogotá, Medellin. You see them also in Madrid. You see them, of course, in many cities in the US, like New York, Miami, Houston, and other major areas of the world. However, not all Venezuelan females abroad are made alike. There are differences between each cohort of the women and also each location outside of Venezuela, and also difference compared to the dating Venezuelans within Venezuela. Which one is better? Well, it depends. I would say it's better here. But depending on your particular location and your particular situation abroad, can also, you might consider to date Venezuelan women abroad. Well, the first thing that you have to know if you are trying to date a Venezuelan female abroad is that females have this tendency in order to absorb and accustom more quickly than men to the local culture. And sadly, if you have a terrible dating market in your home country, Venezuelan females are going to absorb this terrible dating culture that you have in your home country, if that's the case. Sadly, most of the Venezuelan women that have migrated to the, let's say, the OECD nations, the first world countries, are either in United States or in Spain. And those countries have terrible dating markets, if you are a local over there, of course. And of course, depends also, for instance, in the United States, it's very big, depends on the city, but most of them are going to be in Miami, New York, and in Texas. And for instance, Miami has one of the worst dating markets in the United States. Just my opinion, believe me. And what I see in Miami, outside looking in, I'm not an expert in Miami, but I've been a bunch of times, by the way, is that the culture over there, since, of course, Miami has this Latino vibe with a bunch of course, born and raised Americans as well. You have this sugar baby culture. It is what it is. You have high-end places in South Beach, in Brickell, high-end luxury, VIP clubs with VIP bottle services that cost thousands of dollars, and places that a meal costs hundreds of dollars. I know overall United States is more expensive right now. But anyways, so the more successful men dating over there in Miami, that kind of stuff, are the rich ones. It is what it is, unless you look like a model or something like that. So you have this, let's say, sugar baby culture over there, that women, the most beautiful women, are gonna date the ones that can provide this particular lifestyle, depending is fake or not, because I know a lot of people in Miami, men, they like to pretend something, show up what they don't have. They rent a particular high-end property that they cannot afford. They rent Lamborghinis, or they pay them on credit and swipe the car for paying these VIP bottle services in Brickell and South Beach, that kind of stuff. And it is very, of course, that you have more of a salt-of-the-earth culture outside of these particular areas of Miami. Anyways, but actually Venezuelan women pick up very easy this particular lifestyle, and that's the standard for the average female in these particular locations like Miami, New York. Mostly Venezuelan women are going to be like that, except for, let's say, the older ones, like on their mid-30s and 40s, that they're more traditional on those ages, but most likely she already, on this particular cohort between 35 and 45, that, by the way, you have a bunch of beautiful Venezuelan women on those age cohorts. Not my cup of tea, but if that's your thing, just in case you don't know. Well, anyways, these particular women, they most likely they're already with a partner, with a long-term partner, maybe already married. But funny thing though, what I've seen in Miami, actually I was speaking last time I was in Miami speaking with a fellow Venezuelan, a very cute Venezuelan that she's on, I will say, late 30s or early 40s back then. I believe she doesn't speak well English, and that might be the reason. But she's very cute. I mean, she's beautiful, but at the same time, very cool girl. By the way, shout out to you if you're listening, ever watch this video. Well, anyway, I was speaking to her, and she told me that she doesn't date, doesn't have a partner, regardless if it's Venezuelan or an American. And the only company that she has, and she was telling me this, the only company that she has is a dog. And she was showing me pictures of a cute, big, very cute dog, by the way. And the only family member that she has is her mother here in Venezuela. And I was on my mind. I was looking this particular girl, and I was thinking, I mean, she's a valuable girl for a valuable woman for a man on that particular age cohort and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, you have those particular opportunities over there in places like Miami, New York, that kind of stuff. Now, let's go with the European side. That will be mostly, I'm going to use Madrid as a reference, but on a lesser degree happens in other parts of Western Europe, especially the Mediterranean countries. Okay, mostly are going to be in Madrid, of course. And what happens is in Europe, people are more everyone. I mean, people don't mingle as much. Everyone's on their own team, mind their own business. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's their culture, by the way. What happens with Venezuelans, actually, they are very pushed in order to mingle with themselves and other Latinos. So they don't mingle as much with Spaniards and other Europeans, but indeed it happens eventually. And also what happens is, of course, depends how beautiful is a particular Venezuelan woman. A woman that is an 8 and above, and there are a bunch of those, they have a lot of opportunities over there. Now, what I've seen, what happens is that usually Venezuelan women this is in Spain, they like to date with their fellow Venezuelans. And on a lesser degree, happens the same on other parts of Western Europe. What happens, of course, the culture of Europeans push them in order to only mingle with themselves. That's one thing. But the second thing that happens is that, remember, the financial status of a man is very important for dating a woman any place in the world. In the United States, actually, men first, they have more purchasing power than the average man in most places in the world. And usually, American men usually like to, treat well the women regarding paying for a dinner, paying for a fancy dinner and trips and that kind. Simp a little bit. It is what it is. They are very prone to that. However, European men are not the same. Actually, they are more frugal. And the tradition over there, this is their culture in Europe, is splitting the bill, going Dutch, as you call it, going 50-50. And Venezuelan women hate that. Most women hate that, but Venezuelan women hate it the most. And that's why they don't like to date as much with Europeans, because they like to be taken care of, the bill. And Latinos don't have an issue with that. Even if they are broke, they're poor, they're going to find a way in order to make ends meet, in order to pay for a dinner or for a date over there. That's one thing. The other thing is Europeans, this is the internet. I never dated a European man, by the way, so and I'll never date a man overall. And if that's your case, you do you. I mean, I don't judge that. But anyways, the intel that I'm getting is that European men, regarding dating, please take it with a grain of salt, is that usually they are very cold, and they are, kind of not as expressive, like a German accountant or something like that. Anyway, shout out to Germans, by the way. Anyway, but the main thing is the Latinos, they have a lot of spark, a lot of spice. They are more outspoken, take more risks. They are more spontaneous. That's a very important thing. And especially the Venezuelans, because the ones, not only the Latinos overall, but the Venezuelans are very good on this. Also the Colombians and also the Dominicans. And there are a bunch of those in Spain, mostly in Spain, but in the rest of Europe, there are a bunch of those as well. So that's kind of the thing. the tingles. So Venezuelan women in Europe tend to date at the end of the day, they are more likely to date men, their fellow Venezuelans, or maybe other Latinos like Colombians or Dominicans. However, they issue what happens with these particular females abroad is hypergamy, of course. Usually, these people in the average men over there in both in the United States, in Europe, usually the men are taller, but it's not a thing the 6 feet tall that American women have. I mean, that's not a thing for Venezuelan women. But they, of course, they like a man that is taller than them. Okay, very good. So what they end up doing is still, the Venezuelan women. Now, I've seen this particular preference change, but usually Venezuelan women like the Caucasian guy, the Caucasian European-looking guy, that you have a bunch of those both in Europe and the United States, and not as much the Latino look and not as much the African American look, but I've seen increasingly, still a minority, but increasing the preference for certain Venezuelan females for African looking men. So you have a shot anyway, by the way, if you're listening to this. But the most important thing is the status and the financial status. So if you can combine those, I mean, I'm not saying there's a rule of thumb here, with a decent status in your country, let's say an accountant in your country, you don't have to be a billionaire or anything like that, an accountant or something of that nature, but also you have some the intangibles of dealing with women, you are not particularly either tall or short, and with a decent look, you can make things happen. The last thing I want to add about dating women abroad, and of course, this depends on different locations, is the monkey branch. And let me explain in case you don't know. Monkey branching is this particular, let's say, act that women do, that they are dating or they have a boyfriend or even are married to a typical guy. So instead, when they are not pleased with this particular relationship, what they do, instead of straight up leaving the particular mate, the significant other, what they do is meanwhile, they are still dating this guy, they start dating another guy. So being unfaithful. This is what it is. That happens because, of course, being a migrant is very difficult. Your standard of living, newly arrived, is diminished a lot. So you, as a man, when you're a migrant, you lose your status a lot. And sometimes, I'm not saying all of the times, we have seen marriages that spend a bunch of years migrating, so very good for those women. That's your case. But they are more prone to do a monkey branching with the local, let's say, a local guy in the US or Western Europe. And well, that happens is a cohort usually happen with the younger ones, not as much with the women over 40 or anything like that. Something I noticed, and I'm not saying try to make a girl monkey branch from a Venezuelan boyfriend to you. I'm not saying this, please, but you see that a lot. So depends on the particular situation of the female, also depends on the particular beauty level of that particular female. She's gonna have more opportunities, more things, more anything like to say. And also depends on the location, depends on for instance, the United States, depends on the different locations within the United States on the first place. And also, by the way, Chicago, I forgot to mention Chicago, you have a bunch of Venezuelan women right now. Anyway. And lastly, something I want to close the video, this is a bonus, is that actually Venezuelan men I'm getting that are becoming very successful dating women on Europe. Unlike the United States, where men, United States is more of a wealthy place, you have a bunch of people making over $100,000 per year and that kind of stuff. So usually Venezuelan women, of course, they are attracted towards status, like any women in the rest of the world. It's not like Venezuelan women are different on that regard. So they tend a lot to date the local man that is making good money and that kind of stuff, and they discourage the Venezuelan, the fellow Venezuelan men, unless the women doesn't speak good English, or there are some women that they don't like as much foreigners and that kind of stuff. So even in the United States, they date Venezuelan men as well. But meanwhile, the Venezuelan men, they are very difficult in order to be successful dating because usually they are migrants and that kind of stuff. And it's very difficult to compete for a Venezuelan man over there. In most cases, when I've seen an Venezuelan man dating an American woman, usually is ugly or fat or something like that. Don't want to insult anyone or anyone else. Meanwhile, in Europe, the men, since in Europe men are not as successful financially, and also they are more frugal, and Venezuelan women hate frugal men, and also they are more cold and distant. They are not as spontaneous. European men are not as successful in order to date Venezuelan women, of course. There are a bunch of cases, no, by the way. However, what I'm seeing right now is that actually Venezuelan men are very successful dating European women in Europe because Venezuelan men, first, the socioeconomics in Europe is that everyone, I mean, it's not like everyone is middle class, so a very egalitarian society, dependent. Of course, there are rich people over there. Usually, people make, like 2,000 euros per month. That's kind of the average, depending on the country in the European Union. So, matching as a Venezuelan man, trying to overcome the financial disadvantage that you have for being a Venezuelan migrant in Europe is not as difficult. One thing. Second thing, European men are frugal with men, Venezuelan men are not. Doesn't matter if they're rich or poor, they're gonna pay the bill most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time. And since they are spontaneous and that kind of stuff, they are being very successful dating Venezuelan, I'm talking European women abroad. Meanwhile, the Venezuelan women prefer to date the Venezuelan men. This is in Western Europe, of course. Just a random fact, just some other weekend video, food for thought, in order to rest from all of this economic nonsense. Please take everything with a grain of salt.
Thank you for watching Venezuela Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. If you want to work with us, venezuelainsider.com. Thanks again and have a nice day.